Maya Chen pressed her palm against the bioscanner beside her apartment door, waiting for the crimson flash that meant her bank account could handle another day of rent. The neural interface embedded behind her left ear buzzed with payment notifications, all declining. Her studio apartment's walls shifted from their default calming blue to an aggressive orange, the smart glass responding to her cortisol levels. December 23, 2087. Outside her window, holographic snowflakes drifted between the chrome towers of Neo-Manhattan, their programmed perfection mocking the chaos of her inbox. Rejection after rejection glowed on her antiquated laptop screen, the kind without neural connectivity that marked her as definitively lower class. Chen Designs regrets to inform you, unfortunately not the direction we're pursuing, budget constraints. Her neural implant chimed with an incoming message. Maya's jaw clenched as she recognized her mother's priority override, the kind that cost credits but guaranteed delivery regardless of the recipient's do not disturb settings. Eleanor Chen, priority. Family gathering tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. The Wainwright Chens will be there. Try to have something meaningful to contribute to the conversation for once. Maya's apartment walls deepened to burgundy, reflecting her spike in irritation. The biosensors woven into her cheap furniture had learned to read her moods over the past 3 years of solitude. She'd disabled most of the social connectivity features that came standard with modern living. No mood broadcasts to her social network, no productivity tracking shared with potential employers, no relationship status updates that her family could monitor. Her reflection caught in the smart mirror above her makeshift workspace. At 28, Maya looked younger than her neural-enhanced siblings, a side effect of being unable to afford the subtle genetic modifications that had become standard among the professional class. No luminescent skin treatments, no metabolic optimizations, no enhanced neural processing speeds. Just original model Maya, running on caffeine and stubborn pride. The mirror's display showed her social metrics: 847 followers on CreativeStream, a 0.3% engagement rate, and a struggling artist algorithmic classification that ensured her posts would never reach beyond her immediate network. For comparison, it helpfully displayed her sister Lauren's numbers: 2.4 million followers, 15.7% engagement, and premium lifestyle influencer status. Another chime. This time, the caller ID made her pulse skip. James Morrison, personal. Still on for tonight. I have news. Good news. Maya stared at the message, her reflection shifting in the smart glass as her apartment's mood sensors detected the change. The walls lightened to a soft gold. Hope, the algorithm had learned to associate with messages from James. She pulled up his contact profile, and his 3-dimensional avatar materialized in her living space. Even as a hologram, James Morrison commanded attention. The neural crown that marked him as a certified genius gleamed against his dark hair, and his biostats scrolled beside his image. CEO of Morrison Tech, neural processing speed in the 99th percentile, genetic optimization index of 94%, estimated net worth fluctuating in real time between 847 and 851 million credits. They'd been working together for 6 months, ever since his company had discovered her viral campaign for underground artists, a project that had somehow bypassed the algorithmic gatekeepers and reached 50 million views in 12 hours. Morrison Tech needed authentic creativity to counteract their sterile corporate image, and Maya needed income to keep her apartment's life support systems running. She typed and deleted several responses. The neural interface would have been faster, but Maya had always preferred the deliberate friction of physical typing. It helped her think. Maya, family thing tonight. Rain check? His response came immediately, complete with real-time biometric data that his premium neural package allowed him to share. Heart rate elevated, stress hormones spiking, Even through technology, disappointment had a signature. James, Maya. We need to talk about the MoMA proposal and other things. Maya's breath caught. The Museum of Modern Art proposal had been her secret for 2 months, a solo exhibition featuring her digital neural art pieces that explored authentic emotion in an algorithmic world. James had been the one to submit her work, using his social standing to get past the automated screening process that would have rejected her application based on her metrics alone. Her mother's voice suddenly filled the apartment, the priority override allowing Eleanor Chen to activate Maya's speakers without permission. "Maya, darling." Eleanor's tone carried the practiced warmth of someone who had spent decades in corporate boardrooms. "I do hope you're planning to make an effort tonight. The Wainwright Chens are bringing their son Marcus. You remember Marcus? He's just been promoted to senior algorithm designer at Neuralink. Such a successful young man." Maya closed her eyes. Marcus Wainwright Chen had attempted to date her 3 years ago, back when she'd still attended family functions regularly. His idea of romance had involved analyzing her neural patterns without consent and presenting her with an optimization plan for their potential offspring. "I'll be there, Mom." "Wonderful. And Maya, perhaps you could wear something that doesn't broadcast your economic status quite so clearly. I've transferred credits for a basic social enhancement package. Nothing fancy, just enough to help you blend in." The connection ended, and Maya's apartment walls shifted to deep grey. The credits notification appeared on her display. 500 credits, enough for temporary cosmetic modifications that would last 6 hours. Her mother's generosity came with strings, always did. Her phone buzzed again. James. Video call? Maya hesitated. She looked terrible. 3 days without proper sleep, surviving on nutrient paste and synthetic coffee. But James had seen her worse during their late-night working sessions. She accepted the call. James materialized in her space, life-sized and unsettlingly present. His penthouse apartment glowed behind him, smart glass walls revealing the neo-Manhattan skyline. He'd clearly just finished a neural enhancement session. His skin had that subtle luminescence that came from cellular optimization treatments. "You look tired." His voice carried the slightly artificial resonance of someone whose vocal cords had been tuned for optimal communication impact. "You look like you just stepped out of a lifestyle magazine." Maya managed a smile, which, considering your social metrics, you probably did. "Maya?" James stepped closer to his camera, close enough that she could see the micro-expressions his neural training hadn't quite suppressed. "Skip the family dinner. We need to discuss the exhibition proposal, and I have something else to tell you." "I can't skip. My mother would—" "Your mother doesn't determine your worth." James ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed genuine despite his enhanced coordination. "Forbes confirmed the interview yesterday. You're officially on the 30 under 30 list for creative innovation. They want to feature your work as an example of authentic artistry in the neural age." Maya's apartment walls flashed bright white, then settled into warm yellow. The sensors had detected her shock, then joy, then the familiar anxiety that followed any good news. "Forbes," she whispered. "The article drops tomorrow. Maya, you're about to become very famous, and very wealthy if you play this right." She sank into her desk chair, the bio-responsive cushioning adjusting to her elevated heart rate. "My family doesn't know about any of it. The Morrison Project, the MoMA exhibition, Forbes." "Why?" James leaned forward, his neural crown catching the light. "Maya, you're brilliant. Your work challenges everything about how we interact with technology and emotion. Why hide that? Because every time she'd shared good news with her family, it had been minimized, dismissed, or somehow turned into evidence of her inadequacy. Because her sister Rebecca's medical achievements were real contributions to society, while Maya's art was playing around with computers. because her brother David's financial success was quantifiable in ways that creativity never could be. It's complicated. Uncomplicate it. Come to dinner with me. Let me cook for you. Actual food, not synthetic. We can discuss the creative director position I'm offering you, and you can tell me why you're so determined to seek approval from people who don't understand what you're building. Maya looked at her reflection in the smart mirror. With the social enhancement package her mother had provided, she could attend tonight's gathering looking like she belonged. She could smile and deflect questions about her career, endure another evening of being the family disappointment, and maintain the careful distance that kept their relationship functional. Or she could choose herself for once. Her neural interface buzzed with another priority message from Eleanor. Eleanor Chen, priority. Maya, I've just seen the guest list. Senator Harrison will be attending, along with the CEO of BioLux Industries. This could be valuable networking. Please don't embarrass the family tonight. The pressure behind Maya's eyes intensified. Senator Harrison, who had authored the Neural Enhancement Accessibility Act that priced basic upgrades out of reach for anyone below upper middle class. BioLux Industries, whose genetic optimization packages started at 100,000 credits and included a social credit system that automatically elevated enhanced individuals in algorithmic rankings. These were the people her family wanted to impress. These were the values that mattered in Eleanor Chen's world. James was still watching her, his enhanced perception likely reading micro-expressions she couldn't control. Maya, you're spiraling. I can see your stress indicators from here. She laughed, sharp and bitter. The perks of poverty, no privacy settings on my biometrics. That's not what I meant, and you know it. James's voice softened. I've been watching you work for 6 months. I've seen how you think, how you create, how you solve problems that teams of neural-enhanced designers can't crack. You don't need their approval. Easy for you to say. Your neural processing speed is in the genius range. Your genetic profile is public record, and your net worth fluctuates based on market confidence in your innovations. You're everything my family values. I'm everything society tells your family to value. There's a difference. Maya stared at him through the hologram, noting the way his shoulders held tension despite his enhanced posture control, the way his eyes tracked slightly to the left when he was calculating his words. Even with all his technological advantages, James Morrison was still human enough to be nervous. What's the other thing? She asked. You said you had something else to tell me? James smiled, and for a moment the corporate polish fell away entirely. That conversation happens in person, over dinner, with wine that costs more than your monthly rent. Despite everything, Maya felt herself smiling back. Subtle. I don't do subtle, I do effective. He paused. Maya, I know family obligations feel overwhelming, but you have a choice. You've always had a choice. The call ended, leaving Maya alone with her reflection and the glowing credits transfer from her mother. Outside, the holographic snow continued its perfect descent, each flake programmed to inspire wonder and seasonal purchasing behaviors. Maya looked at her laptop, still displaying rejection emails from companies that would probably be bidding for her services once the Forbes article went live. She looked at her smart mirror, showing social metrics that would multiply exponentially once her exhibition opened. She thought about James, waiting in his penthouse with news that would change her life, and about the creative director position that would give her the resources to create art that actually mattered. Then she thought about her mother's voice, sharp with disappointment and social anxiety. About her siblings, who would see her success as somehow diminishing their own. About the careful balance of family dynamics that had kept her connected to the only people who had known her before algorithms and enhancement packages and social credit scores. Maya closed her laptop and walked to her closet. The social enhancement package would give her 6 hours of looking like she belonged in her family's world. 6 hours of playing the role they expected, of smiling through conversations about achievements she couldn't share and successes she couldn't claim. But first, she had a choice to make. She opened her messaging interface and began typing to James, her fingers steady on the physical keyboard. Maya, save me some wine. This conversation might take longer than expected. Then she opened a message to her mother. Maya, I'll be there, but I'm bringing something to contribute to the conversation after all. Her apartment walls shifted to deep blue, reading her determination as calm confidence. Maya smiled at her reflection, noting the way anticipation changed her features even before the enhancement package took effect. Tonight, everything would change. She just had to survive the family dinner first. As she prepared to leave, her neural interface chimed one final time. A message from an unknown sender routed through several privacy layers. Unknown. The Chen family gathering tonight. We know about Morrison Tech. We know about Forbes. We know about MoMA. Some secrets are too valuable to stay hidden, especially when your family's about to learn what you're really worth. Maya stared at the message, her apartment walls flashing warning red. Someone had been monitoring her communications, tracking her achievements, watching her carefully constructed private life. And they were planning to expose everything tonight, whether she was ready or not. The game had just changed, and Maya Chen was no longer playing by her own rules. Maya stood in the marble foyer of the Chen family estate, her enhanced appearance courtesy of her mother's credits making her feel like she was wearing someone else's skin. The social enhancement package had smoothed her features into the same algorithmic perfection that marked the upper classes. Luminescent skin, perfectly symmetrical bone structure, eyes that caught light in ways nature never intended. The house's AI recognized her biometrics and adjusted the ambient lighting to complement her temporary modifications, while holographic displays throughout the space automatically updated to showcase the family's achievements. David's latest financial conquest glowed in gold lettering above the main staircase. Rebecca's published research papers cycled through translucent screens that followed guests as they moved. Lauren's social influence metrics pulsed in real time above the living room entrance. Maya's section remained conspicuously blank. Maya! Eleanor's voice carried the practiced enthusiasm of a corporate executive welcoming major investors. She glided across the smart stone flooring, her own enhancements making her appear decades younger than her actual age. You look presentable. The social package suits you. Thanks, Mom. Maya's jaw ached from maintaining a smile. Around them, the house's emotion-reading sensors adjusted the atmospheric programming, detecting tension and automatically releasing calming pheromones into the air. The main salon buzzed with Neo-Manhattan's elite. Senator Harrison's neural crown gleamed as he discussed legislation with a cluster of enhancement executives. Marcus Wainwright Chen stood near the quantum fireplace, his genetically optimized frame perfectly proportioned as he gestured animatedly about his latest algorithmic breakthrough. The guests wore their wealth like armor, neural interfaces that cost more than most people's annual salaries, genetic modifications that eliminated every human imperfection, clothing that shifted patterns based on social interactions. Maya, darling, you remember Marcus? Eleanor said, her hand firmly on Maya's elbow, guiding her toward the fireplace grouping. He was just telling us about his promotion to senior algorithm designer at Neuralink. Marcus turned, his enhanced smile activating facial muscles in perfect mathematical precision. Maya Chen, you look different. 6 hours of synthetic perfection, Maya replied. Don't get used to it. His laugh held the calculated warmth of someone whose emotional responses had been neural optimized for maximum social impact. Still the refreshing honesty I remember. So few people maintain authentic personality traits these days. Maya bristled at being called a trait, but managed to keep smiling. Around them, other guests' biometric readings appeared in her peripheral vision through the house's social networking overlay. Heart rates, stress levels, genetic compatibility scores that her family had undoubtedly paid to access. Marcus was just mentioning that Neuralink is expanding their creative division, Eleanor said, her tone heavy with implication. Perhaps you two could discuss opportunities. The suggestion hung in the air like programmed pheromones. Maya felt the familiar weight of family expectations, the careful choreography of arranged social advancement that had defined her siblings' lives. David's wife Sarah had been selected from a compatibility algorithm. Rebecca's husband had been chosen from a pool of professionally and genetically suitable candidates. Lauren's fiancé had been introduced through a family business connection. Maya was the last unmatched Chen, the final piece in Eleanor's social architecture. I'm sure Maya has plenty of creative opportunities, Marcus said, his enhanced perception likely reading her stress indicators. What projects are you working on lately? The question was innocent enough, but Maya felt the familiar panic. How could she explain that she'd spent 6 months working with James Morrison without revealing their relationship? How could she mention the MoMA exhibition without exposing the Forbes article that would drop tomorrow? Oh, Maya's always been busy with her little art projects, Rebecca's voice cut through Maya's hesitation. Her sister approached with surgical precision, wineglass in hand, her husband Dr. Williams trailing behind. Though I'm sure nothing as substantial as what you're doing at Neuralink, Marcus. Maya's apartment walls would have shifted to warning red if she'd been home. Instead, she felt her enhanced features maintain their artificial calm, while her actual heart rate spiked. Art is important too, Dr. Williams said diplomatically. Creative expression serves valuable social functions. Of course, Rebecca smiled with perfectly enhanced lips, as long as it pays the bills. Maya's been struggling with that aspect, haven't you, dear? The social enhancement package couldn't hide Maya's flinch. Around them, other guests' attention began to focus on the family drama, their neural interfaces likely sharing gossip in real time across their social networks. Just as Maya prepared to deflect with self-deprecating humor, the family role she'd perfected over years, the house's security AI announced an unexpected visitor. Unscheduled guest at main entrance, James Morrison, Morrison Tech. Shall I grant access? The room fell silent. Even the ambient conversation from other clusters stopped as neural-enhanced guests instantly accessed Morrison's public profile through their interfaces. Eleanor's expression shifted from social embarrassment to calculating interest in nanoseconds. James Morrison, the tech mogul. Maya's enhanced heart stopped entirely. Through the smart glass windows, she could see James standing at the front door, devastatingly handsome in a designer coat that cost more than her annual rent. He held a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her monthly food budget, and his presence radiated the kind of confident authority that came with knowing your net worth fluctuated in the hundreds of millions. Maya stumbled over words that refused to form. Grant access immediately, Eleanor commanded, her voice sharp with social opportunity. The front door dissolved to allow entry, and James Morrison stepped into the Chen family estate like he owned it. His neural crown caught the ambient lighting, his genetically optimized features making even the enhanced guests look slightly artificial by comparison. His biostats projected in the air around him through the house's social networking overlay. CEO, Morrison Tech, net worth, 847 million credits, fluctuating. Genetic optimization index, 94%. Neural processing speed, 99th percentile. Maya felt every person in the room recalibrating their assessment of her social value in real time. Maya. James's voice carried across the sudden silence with intimate familiarity. Sorry I'm late. He moved through the crowd like gravity bent around him, guests unconsciously shifting to create a path. When he reached Maya, he leaned in to kiss her cheek. a gesture that appeared casual but allowed him to whisper against her ear. "You look terrified. Should I rescue you or let you handle this yourself?" "I can handle it," Maya whispered back, even as her enhanced composure threatened to crack. "Maya, you didn't mention you knew Mr. Morrison." Eleanor's voice held the careful control of someone recalculating entire social strategies. "We've been working together," Maya said carefully. "Working together?" Marcus's enhanced eyebrows rose in perfectly symmetrical surprise. "On what kind of project?" James stepped slightly closer to Maya, his hand finding the small of her back in a gesture that seemed protective and possessive simultaneously. "Maya has been our lead creative consultant for the past 6 months. Her work on our rebranding campaign just secured our Series B funding, $87 million to be precise." The room's ambient sound dampened as every conversation stopped. Maya felt her family's shock like a physical force, their biometric readings probably spiking through the house's monitoring system. 87 million? David's voice cracked slightly, his neural-enhanced composure faltering for the first time Maya had ever witnessed. "The campaign Maya designed increased our market valuation by 12% in 3 months, James continued, his hand maintaining its intimate contact with Maya's back. "She has a gift for authentic emotional connection in our increasingly algorithmic world." Eleanor's expression cycled through surprise, pride, calculation, and something that might have been maternal recognition. "Maya, you never mentioned—" "I wanted it to be a surprise," Maya interrupted, finding her voice as James's presence seemed to anchor her confidence. "The project's been confidential until now." "Confidential projects worth $87 million, Rebecca repeated, her enhanced features unable to hide the sharp edges of jealousy. James smiled with the easy confidence of someone accustomed to commanding rooms full of powerful people. "Maya's work speaks for itself, which is why I'm here tonight, actually." He turned to address the room, but kept his hand on Maya's back, including her in his sphere of influence. "I've come to ask Maya to consider a permanent position as our creative director. The offer includes equity packages, neural enhancement benefits, and a starting salary that—" He paused, seeming to calculate Maya's comfort level. "Well, let's just say it would make her one of the highest-paid creative professionals in the industry." Maya felt the room's energy shift around her like tectonic plates realigning. Suddenly, she wasn't the family disappointment. She was the family member with access to James Morrison, with proven ability to generate massive financial value, with a job offer that probably exceeded David's investment banking salary. "That's substantial," Senator Harrison said, inserting himself into the conversation with political timing. Morrison Tech's expansion into creative services could have significant economic impact. "Maya's vision is driving that expansion," James replied, his fingers pressing slightly against her back in what felt like encouragement. "She understands human authenticity in ways that algorithmic analysis can't replicate." Throughout this exchange, Maya noticed James's subtle performance. Every gesture, every word choice, every pause seemed designed to elevate her status in the room while establishing their connection as both professional and personal. He was playing the game her family understood, social positioning through association, but using it to protect rather than exploit her. "Well," Eleanor said, her corporate training helping her adapt to rapidly shifting social dynamics, "this certainly calls for a celebration. James, I hope you'll join us for dinner. We were just discussing Maya's future plans." "I'd be delighted," James replied with perfect courtesy, "though I should mention that Maya and I had dinner plans of our own after this gathering." The implication hung in the air like expensive perfume. Maya felt her family recalibrating once again, now seeing her as someone worthy of James Morrison's romantic attention rather than just professional collaboration. As they moved toward the dining room, Maya caught Rebecca's eye. Her sister's enhanced features couldn't quite hide the mixture of confusion, jealousy, and grudging respect that flickered across her expression. "Maya," Rebecca said quietly as they walked, "we need to talk later." "Do we?" Maya replied, feeling James's presence beside her like armor against her family's usual dynamics. The dining room had been programmed for intimate luxury, smart glass walls revealing the Neo-Manhattan skyline, lighting that enhanced everyone's genetic modifications, furniture that adjusted to each guest's optimal comfort settings. Maya found herself seated between James and Marcus, with her family arranged strategically around the table. As the household AI began serving the first course, molecular gastronomy that cost more per plate than Maya usually spent on food in a week. James leaned closer to her. "How are we doing so far?" he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "I feel like I'm watching someone else's life," Maya whispered back. "Good," James said, his hand finding hers under the table, "because you deserve a life worth watching." The gesture sent electricity through Maya's neural pathways that had nothing to do with enhancement technology. She looked up to find her family observing every micro-interaction between them, their enhanced perceptions cataloguing the obvious intimacy. "So, James," David said, his investment banker training helping him recover his conversational footing, "what's Morrison Tech's growth projection for the next quarter?" As James launched into a discussion of market penetration and algorithmic innovation, Maya realized that for the first time in her adult life, she was sitting at her family's table as an equal. Not the artistic disappointment, not the unmarried burden, not the child who couldn't quite manage adult success. She was Maya Chen, creative director-elect of Morrison Tech, romantic partner of one of Neo-Manhattan's most eligible billionaires, and suddenly, incomprehensibly, the most interesting person at the table. The thought terrified her almost as much as it thrilled her. As the evening progressed, Maya watched James navigate her family's social dynamics with masterful precision. He deflected Rebecca's increasingly obvious attempts at flirtation, engaged David in discussions that showcased Maya's strategic thinking, and somehow managed to make Lauren's social media success seem complementary to rather than competitive with Maya's achievements. But Maya also noticed the calculating looks her family exchanged when they thought she wasn't watching, the way her mother's attention had shifted from disappointment to something that looked disturbingly like social ambition. She was no longer the family failure, but she wasn't sure she wanted to be the family asset either. "Maya," Eleanor said during a pause in conversation, "you simply must bring James to the Harrison Foundation Gala next month. Senator Harrison was just mentioning how important it is to have creative voices in policy discussions." Maya felt the familiar sensation of being volunteered for social obligations, but now with the added complexity of James being included in her family's strategic planning. "Actually," James said smoothly, "Maya and I will be traveling next month. The Museum of Modern Art is featuring her work in a solo exhibition, and there are several international galleries interested in collaborative projects." The silence that followed was so complete that Maya could hear the house's ambient systems adjusting to the sudden lack of conversation. "Museum of Modern Art?" Rebecca's voice held the first crack in her enhanced composure. "Maya?" Maya looked around the table at her family's faces, shocked, recalculating, seeing her completely differently than they had just hours earlier. She realized that this was the moment James had been building toward all evening, the revelation that would shift the family power dynamics permanently. She was no longer just successful by association. She had achieved something that none of her siblings could claim, something that elevated her beyond their familiar categories of measurement. And judging by the expressions around the table, they were all beginning to understand exactly how much they had underestimated Maya Chen. Maya's fingers trembled against the crystal stem of her champagne flute as Rebecca's words sliced through the holographic display floating above the Chen family's annual status summit. The gathering hall, a marvel of neo-architectural design with walls that shifted from transparent to opaque at Eleanor's neural command, suddenly felt suffocating despite its cathedral-high ceilings. "Let's be honest, Maya," Rebecca continued, her voice amplified by the room's acoustic enhancers so every word carried to the 200 guests scattered across floating conversation pods. "Your little art hobby phase is charming, but James needs a partner who can match his social algorithms, someone whose reputation score actually breaks 4 digits." Maya's augmented reality contact lenses flashed her current metrics in painful red. Influence rating 847, social capital index 2.1, career trajectory declining. The numbers hovered in her peripheral vision like digital shackles, a constant reminder of her family's measuring stick for worth. She watched James across the room, his jaw tightening as he navigated toward her through the maze of levitating platforms. His own metrics blazed in corporate gold, ratings so high they'd maxed out the display parameters. Everything about him screamed success. The neural-linked suit that adjusted its fabric tension based on his stress levels, the soft blue glow emanating from his temple where the latest consciousness enhancement chip interfaced with his neural pathways, the way other guests' conversation pods automatically tilted toward him like flowers seeking sun. "I mean, really?" Eleanor's voice cut through Maya's spiraling thoughts. The family matriarch stood beneath a holographic cascade of their accumulated wealth, numbers that shifted and pulsed with every market fluctuation, every social media mention, every algorithmic calculation of their dynasty's worth. "James, darling, you're brilliant, but you're thinking with your heart instead of your head. Maya isn't in your league. You'll realize it soon enough." The words hit Maya like a neural disruption pulse. Her hand instinctively moved to the small scar behind her left ear, the mark every member of their generation bore, where the family monitoring system had been implanted at age 16. She could feel it now, recording her biometric responses, transmitting her humiliation to the family database in real time. Maya felt herself shrinking, her shoulders curving inward as if she could physically shield herself from their judgment. The old patterns surfaced like malware in her system. The learned helplessness, the automatic apologies, the desperate need to make herself smaller to avoid further attack. Her breathing grew shallow, and she knew her bioreadings were painting a picture of defeat for anyone monitoring her vitals. "Excuse me." She set down her glass with shaking fingers, the smart surface of the floating bar immediately absorbing the residual warmth and adjusting its temperature accordingly. "I need some air." But as she turned toward the exit, her path was blocked by David and Lauren, their expressions wearing the particular brand of false sympathy that had marked every family gathering for the past decade. "Maya, sweetie," Lauren said, her voice dripping with manufactured concern, "maybe it's time to be realistic about your situation. There are programs now, neural retraining centers that can help people like you find more suitable partners." "People like me?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended. "You know," David added, his enhancement-brightened eyes scanning her appearance with algorithmic precision, "people who haven't quite figured out how to optimize their life trajectory. It's not your fault. Not everyone is built for high-level success metrics." Maya felt the familiar sensation of emotional retreat, her consciousness pulling back into the protective shell she'd built over years of such encounters. Around them, the party continued, guests in their quantum-threaded evening wear, their conversations a blend of verbal speech and direct neural communication, their laughter enhanced by mood regulation implants. The Chen family's wealth and status radiated from every surface, every technological marvel, every carefully curated detail designed to reinforce their position in society's hierarchy. James had been watching Maya's biometric data stream through his executive-level access to the family's monitoring network, a privilege that came with Eleanor's courtship of his business partnership. He saw her heart rate spike, watched her cortisol levels climb, felt his own anger building as her confidence metrics plummeted in real time. He'd seen enough. Actually, James's voice cut through the artificial ambience, enhanced by the room's acoustic systems to carry perfect clarity. I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about Maya's trajectory. The conversation pods throughout the hall began rotating toward his voice, drawn by the algorithmic recognition of high-status speech patterns. Eleanor's eyebrows lifted slightly, the first genuine expression Maya had seen from her mother all evening. "James, dear, you don't need to," Eleanor began. "No, Eleanor, I think I do." James stepped closer to Maya, his presence causing her biometric readings to shift from distress to anticipation. "Because while you've all been busy monitoring Maya's social algorithms, you've somehow managed to miss her actual achievements." He gestured, and his neural interface projected a holographic display that materialized above their conversation cluster. Maya's breath caught as her real data began to unfold in the air between them. Not the filtered metrics the family tracking system provided, but her genuine accomplishments. "Maya's artistic vision didn't just influence my last product line," James continued, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had built his empire. "It saved Montgomery Enterprises from bankruptcy. Her aesthetic algorithms are now being licensed by 12 major corporations, generating revenue streams that will eclipse your family's mining operations within 2 fiscal quarters." Rebecca's mouth opened, then closed. David's confident smirk began to waver. Furthermore, James's projection shifted, displaying gallery acknowledgements, critical reviews, industry recognition. Her exhibition at the Neo MoMA opens next month. Advanced reviews are calling it a paradigm shift in post-digital aesthetic consciousness. Forbes isn't just featuring her as a creative visionary reshaping industry, they're dedicating their entire February issue to profiling her work. Maya stared at the display, seeing her achievements laid out like this for the first time. She'd been so focused on avoiding her family's judgment that she hadn't fully grasped the scope of her own success. But more than that, James turned to face her directly, his expression intense. "Maya represents something your metrics can't measure. While you've all been optimizing for external validation, she's been creating genuine value. She builds instead of inheriting. She innovates instead of imitating. She thinks in possibilities rather than limitations." The hall had gone quiet, except for the soft hum of floating platforms adjusting their positions to provide better viewing angles for the drama unfolding at its center. "So when you suggest Maya isn't in my league," James's voice dropped lower, more intimate, yet still carrying to every corner of the space. "You're absolutely right. She's playing an entirely different game, one that actually matters." Maya felt something shifting inside her chest, a warmth spreading outward from her core that had nothing to do with the champagne or the room's climate control system. For the first time in years, she felt her spine straightening, her shoulders pulling back. "In fact," James continued, stepping even closer to Maya, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his neural enhancement implants, smell the subtle cologne that adapted to his body chemistry. "I'm not just offering Maya a job, I'm offering her a partnership, in life and in business." Maya's eyes widened. Around them she could hear the sharp intake of breath from various family members, could see the shock registering on their faces as their social algorithms failed to compute this deviation from expected behavior. "James," she whispered, "what are you doing?" "Something I should have done the moment we walked into this party," he replied, his voice meant for her but still carrying to their audience. "Maya Chen is the most brilliant, beautiful, talented woman I've ever met. You don't deserve her, but I'm going to spend my life proving I do." Before she could respond, before she could think or analyze or retreat into old patterns, James cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Not the polite social gesture expected at such gatherings, but a kiss that spoke of possession and protection, and passionate intent. His lips moved against hers with confident demand, one hand sliding into her hair while the other settled at the small of her back, pulling her against him. Maya felt something ignite in her neural pathways, not the artificial enhancement of mood regulation technology, but pure human chemistry flooding her system. For a heartbeat, she was aware of every sensor in the room recording this moment, every guest watching, every family member calculating the social implications. Then she stopped caring. Instead of pulling away, instead of apologizing or making herself smaller, Maya took control. She kissed him back with newfound confidence, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body pressing closer to his. She could feel the warmth of his skin through his smart fabric shirt, could sense his heartbeat accelerating to match hers. When they finally broke apart, Maya turned to face her family, still in James's arms, still feeling the solid strength of his presence behind her. The words that came out of her mouth surprised even her with their clarity and volume. "Take me home, James. I choose you." The silence that followed was broken only by the soft whir of recording devices and the subtle adjustment of the room's acoustic dampeners responding to the shift in crowd dynamics. Maya could see her family's faces cycling through various expressions: shock, calculation, disapproval, confusion, as their neural processors struggled to integrate this new information. Eleanor was the first to recover her composure. "Maya, darling, this is all very romantic, but you're being impulsive. These partnership offers, they're lovely gestures, but what, Mother?" Maya stepped forward, James's hand remaining supportive at her back. "But they can't be real because you've spent 28 years telling me I'm not good enough to earn them." Her voice carried now with the same confidence that had powered her through gallery openings and client presentations, the professional persona her family had never bothered to witness. Around the hall, she could see guests leaning forward in their conversation pods, their curiosity algorithms fully engaged. "You want to talk about reality? Let's talk about reality." Maya gestured, and her own neural interface activated, projecting financial data that made several people gasp. "I've been financially independent for 2 years, those failed art projects you love to reference. They were stepping stones to major success. Every rejection, every setback, every moment when you told me to be more realistic, I was building something genuine." The numbers floating above them told a story Maya had kept secret. Gallery sales, corporate contracts, licensing deals, investment returns. Her net worth might not match the family's inherited wealth, but her trajectory was undeniably upward, powered by her own creativity and determination. "I kept my achievements secret because you never asked about my life. You only judged my choices." Maya's eyes swept across her siblings, her extended family, the guests who'd witnessed years of her quiet humiliation at these gatherings. "Every conversation was about my failures, my shortcomings, my inability to measure up to your standards. So I stopped sharing the victories." Rebecca stepped forward, her expression cycling between disbelief and something that might have been shame. "Maya, we had no idea." "Of course you didn't." Maya's laugh held no bitterness, only a kind of weary clarity. "Because you were too busy telling me who I wasn't to notice who I was becoming." She took a deep breath, feeling James's presence steady her, feeling the weight of years of accumulated silence finally lifting from her shoulders. "I'm choosing to leave this toxic dynamic behind. Not the family," she looked directly at Eleanor, "but the pattern. The constant measurement against impossible standards. The assumption that love comes with conditions and performance metrics." Her voice softened slightly. "I'm still your daughter, your sister, but I'm done apologizing for my existence. I'm done shrinking to make other people comfortable. I'm done accepting scraps of approval in place of genuine respect." Eleanor's composure finally cracked. The matriarch who had commanded boardrooms and social hierarchies with equal skill seemed to deflate. her enhanced posture controls failing as the reality of Maya's words sank in. I dot. Eleanor's voice was smaller than anyone had ever heard it, the acoustic enhancers struggling to amplify her suddenly fragile tone. I thought I was preparing you, teaching you to be strong. I thought. She stopped, her hand moving instinctively to her temple, where her own neural modifications pulsed with stressed patterns. You thought controlling me was the same as loving me, Maya said gently. You thought breaking me down would build me up. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, the first genuine tears Maya had seen from her mother since childhood. I drove away my most successful child through years of emotional abuse disguised as tough love. The admission seemed to surprise Eleanor herself, as if her neural honesty filters had momentarily overridden her usual calculating patterns. Around them, the family dynamics Maya had always accepted as normal suddenly looked different. David stepped forward, his perfect facade showing stress fractures. Maya, David's voice cracked slightly. My perfect marriage is struggling financially. Lisa and we've been living on credit and image optimization, trying to maintain our status ratings. The pressure to keep up with the family expectations. He gestured helplessly. I've been drowning and too proud to admit it. Lauren moved closer to their circle, her own enhancement brightened features showing strain. I'm drowning in debt from keeping up appearances, she confessed, her voice barely audible. The clothes, the procedures, the social optimization programs. I haven't been able to afford groceries without borrowing against my future earnings projections. Rebecca, who had started this confrontation with such vicious certainty, now looked stricken. I was jealous, she said simply, jealous of Maya's authentic happiness. I could see it in her biometric readings during family gatherings. Even when we were tearing her down, her baseline contentment levels stayed higher than mine. I've spent so much money on mood regulation therapy trying to achieve what she had naturally. The admissions hung in the air like a virus corrupting the family's carefully maintained social programming. Around them, guests began to murmur, their conversation pods shifting to provide privacy as they recognized this moment as too raw for public consumption. Maya felt James's hand squeeze her shoulder, felt his silent support as she processed her family's revelations. This wasn't how she'd imagined this evening unfolding when she dressed for another night of quiet endurance. I can't fix this tonight, Maya said finally, her voice carrying across the space with quiet authority. Years of damage can't be undone with one conversation, but I can offer you a choice. She looked at each of her family members in turn, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time, not as the powerful figures who had dominated her childhood, but as flawed people struggling with their own limitations and fears. You can accept me as I truly am, successful, independent, worthy of respect and love without conditions. Or you can continue trying to reshape me into your image of what I should be, but you can't have both. Eleanor stepped forward, her movements uncertain, as if her neural coordination systems were struggling to process the emotional overload. Maya, can you forgive me? Can we try to rebuild this? The question hung in the air, weighted with years of pain and possibility. Maya studied her mother's face, seeing genuine remorse in features that had been enhanced to perfection, but had rarely shown such vulnerable truth. We can try, Maya said carefully, but it starts with you accepting that your way of loving almost destroyed what you were trying to protect. It starts with therapy, real therapy, not neural adjustment programs. It starts with you learning to listen instead of only speaking to correct. Eleanor nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks, short-circuiting the microsensors embedded in her skin that usually regulated her emotional displays. Yes, whatever it takes. Maya turned to face the rest of her family, seeing the mixture of hope and fear in their expressions. This goes for all of you. I'm not asking you to celebrate every choice I make, but I'm requiring you to respect my right to make those choices. I'm not looking for your approval anymore. I'm offering the chance for genuine relationship. The silence stretched, filled with the subtle hum of technology and the weight of decades of accumulated family dynamics hanging in the balance. James's voice broke the tension with gentle firmness. "Maya, we should go." "This has been enough for one evening." She nodded, feeling suddenly exhausted by the emotional expenditure of the last hour. But as they turned to leave, Eleanor called after them, "Maya?" Her mother's voice was small, tentative. "I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago, but I was too busy trying to make you into something else to see how extraordinary you already were." Maya paused, James's hand warm in hers, and looked back at her family, broken, humbled, but perhaps finally honest. "Thank you, Mother. That means more than you know." The Tesla's neural navigation system guided them smoothly through the city's traffic streams as Maya and James left the Chen family compound behind. The vehicle's privacy mode had automatically engaged, darkening the windows and dampening external sound, creating an intimate capsule suspended in the flow of automated traffic. Maya stared out at the city lights blurring past, her reflection ghosted in the smart glass windows. The evening felt surreal, as if she'd awakened from a long dream where she'd been playing a role that had never quite fit. "Pull over," she said suddenly. James glanced at her, his eyebrows raising in question. "Are you feeling sick?" The adrenaline crash after confrontations like that can be— "Pull over," Maya repeated, turning to face him with an intensity that made his words die in his throat. The Tesla responded to his neural command, smoothly transitioning to a scenic overlook that provided a panoramic view of the city's gleaming towers. As soon as the vehicle settled into park mode, Maya moved with fluid purpose, climbing across the center console to straddle James in the driver's seat. "Maya, what are you—" She silenced him with a kiss that held all the passion and freedom she'd been suppressing for years. Her hands fisted in his shirt as she pressed closer, her body fitting against his with perfect alignment. This wasn't the careful, measured attraction she'd allowed herself to feel before. This was pure want, unfiltered by shame or family expectations. "I'm finally free to express my desires without shame," she murmured against his lips, her voice husky with need. "And I desire you, James Montgomery. All of you." His hands slid up her thighs, fingers tracing the hem of her dress where it had ridden up, his touch sending electricity through her neural pathways that had nothing to do with technological enhancement. "Maya," he breathed, his voice rough with want. "I've wanted this since the moment I met you. But I need you to be sure." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." She kissed him again, deeper, more demanding, her body moving against his in ways that made his breath catch. "Take me home, James. Take me to bed. Show me what it feels like to be wanted for exactly who I am." His arms tightened around her, one hand tangling in her hair while the other traced the line of her spine. "I've reserved the penthouse suite at the Meridian," he said between kisses. "There are business partnership contracts waiting for your signature, but Maya—" He pulled back slightly, his eyes intense with emotion. "This isn't just about business. This isn't just about tonight." "I know," she whispered, her hands framing his face, feeling the warmth of his skin, the slight roughness of evening stubble. "What is it about then?" "Everything," he said simply. "I want to build something real with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and go to sleep knowing you chose me again that day. I want to support your art and challenge your ideas and make you laugh when you're taking yourself too seriously." Maya felt tears prick her eyes, not the bitter tears of family disappointment, but the sweet ache of genuine love offered without conditions. "And I want all of that too," she said. "I want to be your partner in everything. I want to build an empire together and then come home to each other every night." The city sprawled below them, millions of lights representing millions of lives, millions of possibilities. In the intimate cocoon of the Tesla, Maya felt herself fully inhabiting her own life for the first time in years. There's something else, James said softly, his hands gentle now, reverent. Once you've had time to adjust to your new life, once we've had time to explore what this partnership means. He paused, seeming to gather courage. I want to propose properly. I want to ask you to marry me in front of your art, surrounded by the beauty you've created, with your family there to witness how much you're loved. Maya's breath caught. James. I know it's soon, he continued quickly. I know tonight changed everything and you need time to process. But I also know I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You're not just the woman I want, you're the woman who makes me want to be worthy of being wanted back. Instead of answering with words, Maya kissed him with all the love and hope and fierce joy flooding her system. Outside, the city hummed with its endless energy, but inside their private universe, there was only this. The promise of a future built on authentic love rather than social algorithms, on genuine partnership rather than performance metrics. Take me home, she whispered against his lips. Take me to our future. The Neo MoMA's opening night gala buzzed with the kind of energy that only accompanied genuine cultural events. Maya stood before her centerpiece installation, a massive neural responsive sculpture that translated visitors' emotions into cascading patterns of light and sound, watching the crowd's reactions with quiet satisfaction. The months since the Chen family status summit had transformed more than just Maya's professional trajectory. Eleanor, true to her word, had entered therapy, not the quick-fix neural adjustment programs favored by their social circle, but deep, difficult work with a human therapist who specialized in family dynamics and generational trauma. The changes had been gradual but genuine. Eleanor's first genuine apology had come 3 weeks after the confrontation, delivered not in front of an audience but in Maya's apartment over coffee, with tears and halting admissions of years of misguided control disguised as love. Now, as Maya watched her mother navigate the gallery opening, asking thoughtful questions about the art instead of cataloguing its social media potential, listening to Maya's explanations without offering corrections, she felt a fragile hope that their relationship might actually heal. The Times critic just spent 20 minutes in front of the empathy installation, James murmured in her ear, sliding his arms around her waist from behind. I watched her tear up twice. Maya leaned back against his chest, feeling his solid warmth, breathing in the scent that had become home to her over these months of building something real together. Good. That piece is supposed to make people confront their own emotional honesty. Speaking of emotional honesty, James's voice carried a note that made her turn in his arms. There's something I've been wanting to ask you. The gallery noise seemed to fade as Maya focused on his face, seeing the mixture of nervousness and determination in his expression. Around them, her art provided a backdrop of shifting colors and ethereal sounds, the neural responsive technology creating a symphony of human emotion made visible. Maya Chen, James said, his voice carrying clearly despite the ambient sound. You've spent the last 6 months teaching me that the most beautiful art comes from authentic emotion. You've shown me that real success isn't measured in algorithms or social metrics, but in the courage to create something true. He dropped to one knee, pulling a ring box from his jacket. Not the flashy, sensor-laden jewelry favored by their social circle, but a simple, elegant band that seemed to capture and reflect the gallery's shifting lights. Will you marry me? He asked. Will you be my partner in building something extraordinary together? Maya's eyes filled with tears as she looked down at James, then around at the gallery filled with her work, at her family standing nearby with expressions of genuine pride and love rather than calculated approval. Eleanor was crying openly, David and Lauren holding hands with their own spouses, Rebecca smiling through her own tears. Yes, Maya said, her voice carrying across the gallery, causing conversations to pause and heads to turn. Yes, I'll marry you. As James slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to kiss her, the gallery's ambient sound system seemed to respond to the collective emotional spike in the room, creating a crescendo of harmonious tones that perfectly underscored the moment. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Eleanor approached Maya and James near the empathy installation. The sculpture was responding to her mother's emotional state with soft, warm patterns, the neural equivalent of a hug. "Maya," Eleanor said softly, "I'm proud of you, not because of the reviews or the sales or the social recognition, but because you never let us break the part of you that creates beauty from truth." She paused, her hand hovering near the installation's sensor array, watching as it translated her remorse and hope into gentle spirals of light. "Thank you, Mother," Maya replied, meaning it completely, "for letting me find my way back to who I was meant to be, for doing the work to meet me there." Eleanor nodded, then surprised them both by pulling Maya into a genuine hug. No performance, no audience, just a mother expressing love for her daughter without conditions or expectations. As Maya stood surrounded by her art, her family, and the man who loved her not despite her authenticity but because of it, she realized that the greatest revenge against those who had tried to diminish her hadn't been dramatic confrontation or public vindication. It had simply been thriving. The closing image of the evening was Maya and James dancing alone in the gallery after the last guests had departed, surrounded by the gentle glow of her neural responsive art, the installations painting their love in patterns of light that would have been impossible to fake or optimize or enhance. Pure human emotion made visible, beautiful in its imperfect authenticity. True success, Maya reflected as James spun her beneath the cascading lights, wasn't about impressing others or meeting external standards. It was about living authentically and surrounding yourself with people who celebrated your worth simply because you existed. The greatest victory wasn't over her family's limitations. It was the simple, radical act of refusing to be limited by them herself.